Bad words and taboo terms. This video is about taboo words. In it, I utter taboo words, sometimes highly sensitive taboo words. For why I choose to utter the taboo words discussed, even the highly sensitive words, click the link in the description below. Taxonomy of Swearing. In this video, I'm just going to go over the taxonomy of swearing, the three different types of swearing that we've got. And remember that our definition of swearing is the use of taboo words. And there are three ways that we can use them, in a sense, or at least three broad ways. There's informative swearing, associative swearing, and emotive swearing. Informative swearing is where a taboo word is used to convey information. So, in other words, it contributes to the proposition that's being communicated, or it's another way of looking at that, it contributes to the truth value. That is to say that it helps to the recipient to know whether the statement is true or false. It's necessary for knowing whether it's a true or a false statement. So, and there's two sort of informal divisions in this. I say that they're informal because I think this is fairly subjective to determine what is the literal meaning of a taboo word. You know, if we go back far enough, we find that words change so much in terms of their meaning that it's hard to say what the literal meaning is. So this is more of a kind of a subjective, intuitive sense. But so we could look at, for example, the literal meaning of fuck is its sexual sense, that is, of copulation. So my sister fucked my best friend. And notice here that in order to evaluate whether that's a true statement or not, that fuck is necessary, right? It's necessary to be included in the statement in order to determine is it true or false. If we left it out, it would be a different sort of statement, one that really wouldn't be evaluable. It would be something like my sister, my best friend, and that's a very different sort of statement. Or we can look at it as idiomatic. And again, I think intuitively we sense that the fuck in this one is a very different meaning than the fuck in the previous one. I don't think there's any sex involved when you fuck up your car. So I fucked up my car means that I broke it. But again, that fuck up is necessary for knowing whether this is a true statement or not. So it contributes to the truth value of it. It contributes to the proposition being expressed. It gives information. Then we go on to associative swearing, which is about the establishing or communicating the interpersonal relationship between the recipient. So it contributes social, the social aspect of meaning here. So associative swearing, and here we've got at least four different types of associative swearing. There's oath-making, cursing, invective, and bonding. Oath-making, you know, it's not a big deal these days. We don't use it so much. But if you go back in history, oath-making was a big part of swearing. It was, you know, and it really wouldn't have been considered taboo to make an oath. It was the loose oath-making that was problematic. It was where we would make an oath where it wasn't necessary. And you can see how if you're just kind of willy-nilly making oaths, that dilutes the power of making an oath in the first place and calling on God to do so. So, for example, I swear to God, you're so annoying. That's the sort of thing that my daughter would say to my son. And notice here the swear to God, that's making an oath, right? It's sort of establishing that what you're saying is very truthful. And you can see how back before we had written contracts and stuff, this would have been very necessary in society to have a true oath, and loose oath making was tabooed, especially using religious terminology in Christianity, using God or Jesus or Mary in these oaths would have been considered very problematic if it was done loosely, rather than in a situation that called for making an oath. Cursing also was very common when we go back in history. If you look at Shakespeare's plays, there's a lot of cursing that goes on in them. We still get this a little bit today, things like damn you to hell. And you can see again why this is problematic. In Shakespeare's time, casting a plague on somebody or calling for a plague on your house would have been a really bad curse because it would have been calling for death and horrible death on a person and their family. Invective is where we get it into insulting, the insulting uses of taboo words. So name calling, especially pejoratives or maledictives. Name calling is when we use a slur to insult a person to their face, like be quiet, asshole. Right? And so that's calling a person an asshole. That's name calling. And that contrasts with a pejorative, which is similar. You're still using a slur, but in this case, you're using it in the third person. I wish that asshole would be quiet. So in this case, that's a pejorative because you're not talking to the person you consider to be an asshole. You're talking about them. That's a pejorative. And then finally, we've got maledictives, which are just kind of these constructions that we've got for insulting things or others and so on, like fuck my life or fuck you or damn you or eat shit. Those are maledictives. And then finally, we've got the final type of associative swearing, which I think is an important one. This is more the casual use of swearing, of taboo words, in order to create bonds between individuals. What we find more and more is that people use taboo words as a way of signifying the relationship, especially a close relationship, that you are more likely to use taboo words with friends that you're close to. And in fact, there's research that suggests that when people in a workplace swear with each other, especially people who are on the same level, not bosses swearing at their employees, but the cohort of employees swearing with each other, tends to make the work environment tighter, where the people feel like they're closer to their colleagues. So for example, if you're with a friend and you say, hey, let me just grab my shit, the choice of using this taboo word shit establishes the close relationship that you have with that friend. And then finally, we've got emotive swearing. And the research shows this is an important aspect of swearing, is that it's used to convey emotions. And there's two sides to this. There's the emphatic emotive swearing, and then there's exclamatory. So the emphatic is when a taboo word is used to create emphasis, especially emphasizing some aspect of what you're saying, of the utterance. Like, I'm so fucking sorry, really emphasizes how sorry you are. So it's that emphatic fucking. And there are other words that can be used emphatically, like shitty, crappy, I don't know, bitchin'. And then there's the exclamatory, which tend to be these exclamations, often interjections of sorts, that kind of create the emotion of the utterance as a whole. Like, damn, it's freezing out, or fuck, that sucks, right? So in that case, it's giving an exclamation to our emotions. And we can express the whole range of emotions with our exclamations, from anger, sadness, frustration, and joy, right? They can also be positive exclamations. So again, to summarize, we have the three aspects of swearing: the use of taboo words. We have informative, associative, and emotive. In other words, taboo words can be used informatively, associatively, and emotively. But I want to emphasize that these three types of swearing, they're not mutually incompatible. That it's not the case that it's got to be just one type of swearing. A taboo word may be used informatively, associatively, and emotively simultaneously. And in fact, that's often the case. What I wanted to get at is trying to piece apart the different ways that we use these words, because sometimes we may be focusing on the informative aspect of that taboo word and how it's being used, and sometimes it may be the more associative side, and sometimes it may be the more emotive side. But in most cases, there's going to be some information conveyed. There's going to be some associative information, social information being conveyed, and sometimes there may be emotions that are conveyed. So all three of those may be conveyed simultaneously.